Welcome to the Executive Insights podcast brought to you by AWS. My name is Richard from AWS. I'm delighted to be joined by Bernhard Mühlreiter from McKinsey, Senior Partner at McKinsey. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Really exciting.
Great to have you. So Bernhard, I'd like to start at the end of 2026 with a bit of a retrospective backwards. What did the companies that got AI and agentic right look like? What set them apart from organizations maybe that failed with AI and agentic?
It feels that we are now right at the edge of where, companies start to move from pilot to like big scale implementation. We have done a report, it just came out, where we saw that while 88% of all companies are using AI already, at least in one domain, only 6% are actually able to scale. Now, if we fast forward a year, I would say there are probably two things that stand out for me for companies that did it right. The first one is they dared to dream big. What do I mean by this? You need to have a bold aspiration that actually AI is changing your complete corporation upside down. And make that bold bet also in terms of the financial aspiration that you want to have. Like, I want to improve my EBITDA by 5, 6, 7 percentage points. But also, in terms of, let's say, the non-financial benefits that this would entail, right? You have better insights, you have better facts on the table to drive better decisions. And it may also be a more happy place to work, right? Because, people will be able to focus on the stuff that is not as burdensome or administrative than what they do today. So therefore, have a bold ambition and dare to dream big is, I think, one element. The other one, I would say, is you need to manage this as a transformation project, right? And what do I mean by that? If you look how many of these AI implementations are working now or have worked in the past, it's a little bit, hey, I'm trying out the pilot, I'm doing this, I let 1,000 flowers bloom. But in only very few cases, our clients and companies are managing that as a full-scale transformation, which it actually should be. And when I mean full-scale transformation, what does that mean, right? It means that you first of all have a clear strategy of what you want to achieve. You embed that into a set of specific initiatives where you are able to track actually the impact from an initiative level down to the P&L. So you hardwire basically the impact. You focus on capability building and change management at scale, and you make every board member and every department leader fully accountable for the successes, right? So those are, I would say, the two most important things. And then I may add a third one, and that is really around capability building. Because what we see already now is that those companies that are able to drive that broad-based capability building in order to, enable them to not only use Gen AI. I mean, everybody can use the LLMs. They might have ChatGPT that they use to plan their holiday trip or get recommendations. So I would say everybody is able to use it at that level. But the next big S-curve in terms of impact comes if they are also able to build their own simple agents themselves, which I think is what is going to happen next year, and where the right focus on these capability building elements will go a very long way. Yeah, so it's capability building, it's bold ambition, and it's managing it as a transformation program. I think those are the three things that would stand out for me, at least.
Yeah, I love that idea of bold leadership vision, being able to set that direction and then understand how the company follows behind that.
Exactly.
Transformation is interesting, though, because we've obviously seen so many transformations over history, and you've obviously led a huge amount of organizations through their own transformation. What sets the conversations you're having today around AI apart from historic transformations? What needs to be unique for these?
Honestly, the biggest difference is the scale of the impact. I've worked in digital for the last almost 20 years, right? And we have always, supported our clients in driving impact on the back of technology changes, on the back of technology innovations. But that you are able to, realize efficiencies in the range of 30, 40, sometimes 50% is something that was never there before. And that is a feature, I would say, of the last, let's say, 12 to 18 months since, the LLMs became really, really powerful. And one interesting fact on that one is we also looked at, how the models have actually increased in performance year by year. And if you look at the first LLMs that were released in 2018, so let's say the pre-versions of GPT, we saw that every 6 months they became 6x more powerful. So the model parameters, which is the KPI that you want to use for that, is actually increasing every 6 months by 6x, which means that if you fast forward now, it means that in 2030, the models will be 10,000 times as capable as they are now. And that is just mind-blowing because it's like in 5 years, right? It's like, give me a break. What would we be able to do in 5 years already? Yeah. And therefore, I think that is something that is very different to how it was in the past. And I would say the other thing that is also different to how it was managed in the past is there is much more emphasis on rapid implementation. So in the past, it was more like a little bit like a waterfall, right? You analyze, you design, you implement, you test, right? Now it's like, I analyze, but while I analyze, I already have a hypothesis of what I'm trying to build. Yep. Bam, and I move ahead and I'm doing it and I'm building it. I'm like building the plane while I'm flying it. And that I think is something that is very different.
Yeah, the old cliche of change is a constant is really a constant now. I mean, and that idea of transformation and capability building also changes. So setting that idea of transformation for a period of time isn't really the right way to approach it. It's more adapting and evolving as you go. And in line with that, and all the companies that you work with around the world, what's the most disappointing thing that you're seeing from organizations or from leaders when they think about their bold vision?
Lack of speed. The biggest disappointment for me is, let's say, the gap between, everybody talking about the impact that AI has and the excitement about getting going, versus then actually really doing it and embarking on that journey. And I mean, I get it. Like there are a lot of constraints everyone has to face. Each leader is juggling 25 different priorities. So I work a lot in the automotive industry in Europe. So automotive Europe, Germany is probably not a very, let's say, exciting space at the moment. So they are challenged, since year after year, with new situations coming up. And yes, it's very hard to then allocate the investment needed in order to basically drive AI at scale. But at the same time, it's a little bit like, do I continue cutting woods or do I sharpen the saw, right? And I think there needs to be more sharpening the saw kind of mentality. And I mean, to be fair, I see it more and more. Are we 100% there yet? No. So therefore, the biggest disappointment for me is that things are actually too slow. And I read actually a very nice quote from Andy Jassy who said, in today's world, speed is actually a leadership decision. So, you can take the decision to optimize for speed.
Yep.
And that is, I think, what more folks should do.
Yeah, no, quite right. Yeah, speed is not preordained.
Yes.
It's a choice that leadership can make and the organization can make.
Exactly.
On that idea of speed then and companies looking to move faster, are there any areas in organizations where you see there's kind of a universal pattern that can be automated or AI can solve that challenge? Or is there maybe a bit more industry and sort of context that comes with it for that change? Or are there places people can move faster that they should be doing?
So when I think about AI transformations, I always envision something like a T shape, right? So you have the vertical part of the T, which are use cases that are very specific to an industry and to a domain. Say embedded software development in R&D, for instance, or automation in supply chain planning, or accounts payable end-to-end automation. So those things are, one element of the equation. The other one is that you would have general purpose chatbots that actually run across and that could automate a lot of the stuff that we are doing on a daily basis. And those are things that are actually universally available and applicable, because everybody needs to write memos. Everybody has to, build Excel models. Like, there are a lot of tasks actually in the white collar kind of sphere that, that have a massive potential, and that is also cross-cutting across all different sectors. And what we believe is that in order to approach that part of the value, you need to think a little bit like we used to do it with lean transformations. So in lean transformations, what you would want to do is you go into a department or a team, you look at them for 2 to 3 weeks, you do what we call a WILO analysis. So WILO stands for week in the life of. So basically, you look at what are these guys actually doing all day, right? And then you segment the activities and tasks that the team is doing to stuff that actually is easily automatable with given technology, and other stuff that they shouldn't be doing anyway. So we scrap that. Yeah. And then other stuff that is like really highly value adding and where you would not be able to automate. And on this junk that actually is automatable, you then deploy the existing technology against it. And within a time frame of 2 or 3 weeks, you can actually drive efficiencies of, well, conservatively speaking, 10 to 15, but maybe even 20% or more, if you enable the people to use these tools in the right way. And that is what I think makes a big difference, right? And I mean, we do the same within McKinsey, right? So we have developed a chatbot solution as well. It's called Lily. Lily was the first, it's named after the first female consultant that we had in the firm. Her name was Lily as well. So that's Lily. And, our folks, in the beginning, everybody was like skeptic and say, it's not going to work and who is going to use it and so on. But now, especially the younger folks, but more and more also our partners are using it like every day, multiple times. Like, it's always open. Any kind of question is being asked, even during calls and meetings, it's being used. And that drives a huge level of efficiency and also effectiveness, right? And we may come to that later, but it's very important to see these agentic AI opportunities, not only in the field of, hey, I'm being more efficient and therefore I can, cut costs by X%. No, it's also that all of a sudden you are exposed to data that are relevant to take better decisions.
I like the way you described it there in terms of processes maybe that are more repeatable, recognizable, that can be automated rather than using AI and machine learning, versus those that are value add, I think were the words that you used. And thinking about how those may be more experimental parts of the organization, or where we can be working close to customers, we can be finding out how that technology can add more value to those customers. But for organizations who are thinking about approaching that transformation, how do they consider return on investment? Because obviously every organization is saying, well, if we're going to put $1 here, we want to see 10x there, whatever it might be. How do you consider ROI when it comes to something like agentic and efficiency versus effectiveness, as you mentioned?
No, absolutely. So look, I mean, the good thing about all of this is that the efficiency potentials are so massive that even if you not consider the effectiveness potential, which clearly is there, it's still a very good idea to do it, right? So therefore, when you build your business case and your return on investment calculation, even if you would only focus on the cost side, it would be a massive return on investment, unlike many other, investments that you would be able to take as a corporation, right? So it's very important. And then on top, then come the effectiveness ROI, where, all of a sudden you realize that, to my point earlier, you are able to take better decisions, which influence, how successful you can operate on the market, right? I mean, I give you a very simple example from my, let's say, own family. So my wife is a doctor and she has a private practice. And from time to time, she wants to understand, like, are the prices that she charges for the different treatment, are they actually in line or not? And in the past, there would have been no ways to know that, apart from, doing manual research of what others are charging. And now with ChatGPT, I mean, she has an agent that like every week screens, the websites of other doctors in the area. And therefore she knows, hey, where am I actually overcharging, or where is actually an opportunity to price differently. And the same is true, for instance, that she says, okay, I built my own website. I wouldn't have been able to do that without Gen AI. So even, very small enterprises, so to speak, are able to use that to a massive extent. And again, not only on the efficiency side, also on the effectiveness side. And I found that I found that very, very interesting. And at the end of the day, I think each company needs to find a good mix, right, in terms of the KPIs. And sometimes we also develop balanced scorecards where you say, okay, you have certain KPIs. Typically, it's efficiency, speed, and then quality, right? And then you attach specific KPIs to it, and then you are able to measure actually what the return on investment is.
Yeah. And then understanding when to turn it off or to continue and those kind of things is important. Again, coming back to your capability building of understanding when maybe an experiment is going well, understanding those KPIs and not setting that waterfall metric of delivering as you go through. And agentic obviously is a huge conversation at the moment. Are there any workflows that you see in your own organization or in organizations you work with where we can add more value than just pilots, things that could be scaled across organizations?
Let me pick 2 or 3 that I believe are probably top of my list. The first one is software development. I mean, it's by now it's absolutely incredible how that has transformed over the last 1 or 2 years, right? I mean, actually in the future, but also already now, software development is not real development anymore, right? It's about telling the bot what you want to have and then being able to interpret the result, right? And there is still huge potential out there. We see companies experimenting with it a little bit, but actually it's just really, the tip of the iceberg, right? And there is so much more that's in store there. I told you that I do a lot of, manufacturing and automotive work. Here you also have a massive amount of embedded software development, right? So where, you have thousands and thousands of software engineers that are writing code for products, for, cars, for components, for all of that stuff. And again, here I would argue that what they are doing in a time frame of 2 weeks in the future will probably only take 1 or 2 hours at max, right? And I'm serving a client now who is also pivoting in that direction. And we had one department that we already, transformed with agentic AI. And it's very interesting because the developer, instead of writing code, is actually writing a script, right? It's almost like a memo. Is that I want this and I want that. Yes, that also takes time, and exactly natural language. That also takes time and needs to be a little bit apprenticed. But once you're there, it's so much more efficient. Yeah, and you can even then ask the bot to identify if there are any errors or any potentials to optimize. So that is for me the first area. The second one that I also find extremely fascinating is customer service and call center. So here. I'm working with a company that is doing humanoid bots for call center, where you would be able to call. And basically, as a caller, you would not be able to distinguish if this is now a real person that you are speaking to or it's actually a bot, right? So they would understand the intent. They would understand like if you're angry or happy or funny or sad, and they would react to that, right? And that's absolutely fascinating, and we see a lot of clients now also taking that call center automation as one of their top use cases in order to leverage AI at scale. And then the third one I would say is everything related to back office activities in finance, in HR, etc., where also many of these very manual processes can very easily be automated with technology. Be it, in HR, screening CVs, writing reference letters, also performance evaluation, collecting feedback, doing all of that stuff is massively accelerated with AI. So those are, I would say, 3 areas that I'm particularly excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree on all of those. And if you're advising, or as you do advise your customers now on setting up sort of digital factories, if you like, to produce these agents, what are some of the criteria that you'd suggest people considered as they were looking to enable a small team to put them out at scale?
So, I mentioned earlier that it was a little bit, we go a little bit back to the lean days, right? Where we did lean transformations, team by team transformations. And another element that I think is being revived now is this whole notion of agile development and agile teams, right? What you have to have in terms of a organizational setup for these digital factories or agentic factories to work is you need to have you need to segment the corporation in, let's say, 60 to 80 cells, right? Could be departments, could be functions, and in each cell you actually have like a product owner on the business side, and you pair this person up with somebody from the tech side. And those two build the tandem that then can drive joint decisions around where they want to invest and which bots and which agents they want to build. So there is a lot of autonomy in that cell in order to drive those use cases at scale. And autonomy meaning they also have their own budget where they can decide what to do with it, but also at the end they are accountable for the successes. Which is very different to this service-oriented operating model in IT that has been there for the last 10 or 15 years, where, you have business that, gives requirements to IT, and then IT throws something over the fence, and then typically business is not happy with it, and then you have this ping pong. So you eliminate all of that if you have like this agile setup with the cells where they work together. The second thing is, how they work together is also very interesting. So we are going back to the sprint logic where you say in very rapid iterations, 1 week, 2 week sprint cycles, you're actually delivering artifacts and you are delivering iteration for use cases. So that is the second element. And the third element obviously is you need a governance structure on top, where you make sure that the overall aspiration is still being met. So you do a tracking in terms of, is the value being delivered? And also you have safeguards in place that there is a responsible usage of AI and that there is no hallucination, and that for your most critical processes, obviously things are working and are not disrupted by, bad recommendations from the AI engine.
Yeah, what's interesting there as well is you talk about agile ways of working, but bringing it back to the beginning with transformation and that changing on such a constant as well.
Yeah.
There's like the agile organization, and then there's an agile way of working, and they're two separate things,
exactly.
right? There's kind of this small autonomous team that can take something and be able to respond 100%. And build it in the right way, versus the organization that can respond to new changes in our AI as that evolves and new ways of operating.
And you need it on both levels. You need that agile little team, and then also as an organization, you need to be agile, and we always define that as stable backbone, but with dynamic capabilities.
And that comes back to your point at the beginning of capability building, which I think is a great way to wrap it up. So the takeaways from this conversation for me are leaders setting big, bold bets for AI transformation, transforming the organization from top to bottom with capabilities and culture, and then building those skills underneath to be able to enable that change.
Exactly. I think that's a perfect summary. And I would add, we are living probably in the most exciting time ever.
Agree.
I think it's a real privilege, like for me personally, but probably for everyone that works in tech, to be part of that journey, because it's absolutely fascinating and amazing. And every year there is so much new stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that.
What a perfect way to end. Bernhard, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.